Hello, hello, hello. I am warming the conversation. Let's talk. How you guys doing? I'm super excited about my guest for today. And look at him. He on time. Come on. I mean, you you done just showed up to the party right on time. You didn't even give me a chance. Hello. You didn't, how you ain't even give me a chance to get the comments out. You didn't give me a chance to introduce you or nothing. You just done showed up. So since you done decided to come on in the room, I'm just gonna room. I'm not gonna even I'm not gonna even wait because you done just showed up. I wasn't even all the way
I
ready.
just showed up.
And do you have on my sweatshirt?
I do have on your sweatshirt. I need to give it back to you. I know I'm overdue for.
I said this man just never gonna give me my shirt back.
Uh uh. One of
For
these
those,
one of these days. Look, after the quarantine, I'm gonna run it to
after the quarantine, and for
you.
those of y'all who like to be in people's inbox, no, it ain't really my shirt. It's just a joke.
Yeah.
I ain't
Right.
got time for it because I'm gonna shut you down so fast. Don't come this way. I wanted to make sure
No,
people
we go back
could see my
forever.
shirt. I wanted to make sure people could see my shirt today, so I'm backing my camera up just a tidbit. Um,
I love it.
yes. Stop taking that. Okay.
Stop
Um,
taking that shit.
so welcome, welcome, welcome. I didn't give you no introduction or nothing because Howard is so timely, but I am warming the
Look,
conversation. Let's talk. Y'all don't understand. Conversation today about to be real good. You heard me? Um, uh,
I know. I shaved my head just for this.
did you? You didn't have
I
to do
did.
that.
I
You didn't
know.
have to do that.
I
Not for
ran
these
into it right
people.
quick. Look,
Yeah,
that
not
right.
for these people.
What she
Not
say
for
on the
these people.
Players Club? He ain't nobody.
So, ladies and gentlemen, tuning in, for those here for the first time and those back again, this is an amazing king in the Black community, a brother, a friend, a son to many of those around him, an amazing um, activist in the community, a wonderful contributor to those. That are necessary in those events that are necessary in our community. The amazing, the wonderful Mr. Howard Robinson.
I appreciate that. Look, I'm still trying to, for me to be so amazing, I'm still trying to figure out how to set up this iPad, having a
Oh
Teddy
no, it's
Riley
fine.
moment.
That's what the first couple of minutes are for, to get it right. You know, I'm a little
Uh-huh.
tilted. I see now I'm gonna have to tilt my phone back. But
hmm
my little setup that I got is not being my friend
Having,
today.
yeah,
So
having what we
uh,
what we call a Teddy Riley moment.
oh, we ain't gonna be Teddy right. Do I look like I'm skipping?
Dip, 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 dip.
hmm
Uh,
But I am super excited to have you. I can't see your face. All I can see is your. There we go.
yeah. Uh-huh.
Ooh, this I can see this antique you sitting on.
Do you
Um,
do you see it?
I
So
see
you
the
know how you
antique.
get that you know how your grandmama got that furniture with the plastic on it?
Yes,
Uh-huh.
yes.
Um when our grandparents passed, me and Tay got pieces and
And
took
took
the
the plastic
plastic
off.
off finally, and found out why the plastic was on it.
Yes, because it's
Uh-huh.
listen, and I'm sure you could get a pretty penny for it, but don't you give away that furniture. It's family.
That's right.
It's a part of the inheritance. Okay.
Absolutely.
But I am super excited. Howard, I mean, you have always been the type of person. Howard and I know each other from high school.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and he's always been his own person. He's always, you know, stood out from the crowd, always did his own thing. You know, whether he was doing it intentionally or not, I think when you are who you are, people can't change that. I remember even in high school, you know, people would say, well, I hung with everybody. I didn't have necessarily a certain group of people or a certain crowd.
That's right.
And I think I could say the same for you, that you didn't have a
That's right.
certain group of people or a certain crowd. And I'm just appreciative of the things that I've seen you doing since we graduated high school. We won't talk about that number. That number ain't none of y'all business about when we graduated, but we did. Okay.
I had
Okay.
somebody calling me old last night, so
Oh,
I
we're
got
not
prepped
old.
for it.
We
No, we
seasoned.
not.
We seasoned.
We seasoned, and we look good, so it's all
And
right.
we look good. That's right.
Yeah.
So I want you to tell people that obviously they know your name because I've told them. But I want you. Oh Lord, I forgot to put my phone on airplane mode. Oh God. Okay. Lord, cover the live in Jesus' name. Amen.
Coming.
Um, cause somebody I done already told. Don't call me between 7 and 8.
Right. Oh,
So
right. I probably should make sure. Yeah. Do not disturb and all of that.
yeah. I should have put my phone on do not disturb, but it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I want you to tell people what you do because they know he's Howard. For those of you just coming in, his name is Howard Robinson. I want you to tell people what you do, and then I want you to tell people why you do it.
Why I do it?
Because that's the most important part. Why you do it is the most important. But you can tell them what you do, but then I want you to tell them why you do it.
All right. So I own a communications company. It's a creative marketing and relationship management firm called Red Clay Hill. We are like a full service branding, advertising, marketing, web design, and PR company. Anything that it takes, and this is how I say it in the short version, anything that it takes to bridge the gap between an entity, whether that's a company, an individual, an artist, a nonprofit organization, a government, anything else. Anything it takes to bridge the gap between an entity and that entity's audience, we provide services and products that bridge that gap. So that can be anything from press releases to social media content to web design and app design to event planning and management and a lot of stuff in between.
Right.
Volunteer training, we've done a little bit of everything. I do that. I started the company because when I was starting to freelance on my own, I realized first that there was not a lot of respect for the work of young independent artists who want to provide services to companies, governments, and other people. Sometimes people try to shortchange you. People try to get you to run around. Not a lot of people want to pay you what you know your work is worth. Right. So part of why I started the business was I didn't want anybody else behind me to go through that. So I wanted to be able to bring in creatives, pay them what they're worth, pay them sometimes more than what they think they're worth, and show them that all they have to do is just show up and show out, and their work will speak for itself. And they don't have to, go back and forth and haggle and shortchange themselves and have a really slow climb. Because what we're seeing now in the middle of the pandemic is just how necessary our work is, right?
Right.
Everybody needs us. The pandemic.
All of y'all booked and busy.
The pandemic has been great for business because everybody needs websites, branding,
right.
social media, advertising, you name it. So I think that what's really interesting to me is seeing how the world is going to change when we come out of this, whatever that looks like. Because there's going to be a shift in how people choose to spend their time because we have so much freedom in how we spend our time right now.
Right.
So that's the company I started. My background, of course, is in politics.
Yes, we know.
I was working on campaigns for a while before I started the company. I've been working in politics since I was 11. My mom sent me to the state capitol, dropped me off at the capitol one day, and said, have a great day at work instead of have a great day at school. I was 11 years old, and I was a page for Vincent Fort's first term in office. That was 1996.
Wow.
And I got bitten by it then. And from then to 2012, I had a string of different campaign jobs. I was the digital media director for the state of Georgia for the Obama campaign in 2012. And then after that, when people were coming to me to run for stuff in 2013, and they were saying, can you do my donation portal? Can you do my social media? Can you do my website? Can you do my... I said, well, why pick one of y'all when I can just go down to the Secretary of State, file these papers, and just take all of y'all as clients? So that's
right. That's the way to do it.
Yeah. those are two things. And then I also got raised, me and Tay, you know my sister too. We got raised learning the value of community work, volunteering, and showing up and trying to make a difference that way. So there's a lot of, I mean, a lot of organizations that I don't want to go down a list and try to shout them out because I feel like I'll be missing somebody.
You'll leave
But
somebody out. That's
oh,
okay.
missing somebody. But We Cycle Atlanta, Eco Action. I joined the board of Tapestry Development Group, which is a nonprofit real estate development firm that that focuses on affordable housing.
Okay.
And they're based in Decatur, which is all right. It's the east side, but I love it. It's a great crew. Love Kathleen, John, everybody over there. And I've been learning a lot over there and using that as a way to spend my time toward actually creating some of the results we say we want to see in the city around
Right.
displacement and everything else.
Now you
So
said that I
that's
want to
kind
ask you something really quickly before we get too
of,
far away from it. You said you named your business Red Clay Hill. Where did that name
yeah.
come from?
Where did that name come from? There is a passage in the Morehouse College history book, The Candle in the Dark, that refers to the school as the house on the red clay hill. So I took that to mean, this is the first time I told this story public. uh, I took that to mean Atlanta. You know, I'm a big fan of Atlanta. I took that phrase to refer to Atlanta. So I said, okay, I guess this is the red clay hill, right? We have all this Georgia red clay. Well, how can I make that translate into some meaning for me? Because I thought it was just a cool sounding phrase.
Right.
Um, okay, it's Georgia. We sit on a lot of red clay. I'm making a branding company. Um, all of these brands that are based here use red in their branding anyway. Delta, the Coke, the Hawks, the Falcons, the Varsity. Uh, everything is red in Atlanta. And then RH are my initials in reverse. So between all that, I was like, okay, that works. I wanted something that wasn't my name because I didn't necessarily want to name the company after me. And what I laughed at in my head was it could sound like it was a firm that was, partners in a firm, and I just made up the story in my head about this Native American and somebody named Hill. So I said, well, it works.
Right.
Everybody family tell them they part Cherokee at some point. So I'm
Right.
like, that's my Cherokee.
I got
side.
mine. I got some Cherokee. These are braids. You can't tell right now, but
You
I
see?
got some Cherokee. It's in my eyebrows.
Yes, uh-huh.
People like to say it's everywhere. But I mean, I
Yeah.
think it's good because when I first saw Red Clay Hill, I think it was, I don't know how many years you had Red Clay Hill at this point, but I remember,
7.
okay, I remember getting the invite. Everybody invites you. So when they start a business and it's on Facebook or, so any form of social media, you get the invite, right? And for me, I'm just like, if I know the person and they are associated with me in some kind of way, I don't have a reason not to, unless you're just doing something that just is
Off the
against my
muscle.
morals and values. Otherwise, I'm going to support you. All I got to
That's
do is
right.
click like. I don't even have to look at the post if I don't want to, whatever. And this is just a word to the people who are out there who have a hard time supporting small Black businesses and things like that. A very good way to be able to support them is to help them with their numbers on social media because that matters. Anyway, so
Absolutely.
Just click like. If they invite you to like a page on Facebook
like. Yeah.
or something like that, just click like. We don't need you to do anything drastic. If you don't want to read the post, you don't have to. But just click like so we can increase our numbers on the pages so that we can get looked at the way we need to. Anyway, so right now, I don't want to stay on there too long. We'll get but an hour. Instagram will cut
Right,
out.
right.
So I want to jump right into a few things. You and I have been communicating a lot about everything
that's going on. Come on.
Listen, I know it's a lot going on. So it's a few things that I just want you to share your perspective on. That's the whole intent of the conversation. For those of you who are just tuning in, this is Brother Howard Robinson. This is I Am Woman, the conversation, and the intent of these conversations is to create a platform for our kings to be recognized, and for people to have an opportunity to see that they're just as intelligent, that they are just as knowledgeable in their subject areas, and have something to say that is a good and positive contribution to the Black community. So that's why all this month I'm speaking to different kings, and I call them kings because they are royalty and they should be treated as such. So King Howard, I appreciate you just in all the advocacy that you do. One of the things that I really, really want you to touch on, just because I know you're knowledgeable in the area, is voter suppression. We literally just had a election, and in my county, we're going to have a runoff for significant local positions and concerns in these particular communities, and talk a little bit about voter suppression in the state of Georgia, what that looks like, what you've seen people experience. Talk about that a little bit.
What it looks like is really, really interesting, right? And that's something that's important to talk about, because a lot of times when we think of voter suppression, we'll think, of course, we had Stacey Abrams versus Brian Kemp, and a lot of people say, oh, he stole an election, he cheated, we need a recount, all those other things. There are dramatic things that happen like that, and there's also subtle measures. For example, if you go to, and this is what we spend a lot of time trying to get people connected to these resources at this last election day on June 9th. If you go to a polling location and they don't have enough machines, if you go to a polling location and the people at the polling location haven't been sufficiently trained to use the machines, if you go there and the line is long and it really doesn't make any sense that there's a 5-hour wait, if your polling location gets closed in an emergency closure, in Fulton County, we had 40 locations closed on the last election day. It's inconveniences. It's not always somebody stealing your vote. Sometimes it's the inconveniences that are meant to be just discouraging enough to turn somebody who might have to go and get their kids because they can't afford childcare, or might need to get back on the bus to make it home because they're transit dependent, and they won't get home in time to get their kids because they don't have childcare. Just anything that's discouraging enough to turn you around is also voter suppression. So it's not always some big bad person in an office somewhere stealing your vote, although not saying that doesn't happen. But sometimes it is as subtle as even the processes. Sometimes it's as subtle, sometimes it happens in the booth. Sometimes there's been a lot of discussion around the way that questions are worded on ballots, because sometimes they're worded in ways that make people skip them. So the best thing you can do to overcome any kind of voter suppression is first to show up and stay there. Polling locations are kid-friendly places. We used to go with our parents back in the old days when we were punching holes in things and you could take kids in the booth with you. We used to go with our parents, and they would even lift us up and have us punch in their vote, right? You can't do that now. But polling locations are kid-friendly places. Take your kids. Like there's nobody who's gonna tell you you can't take your kids. Do what you have to do to go get in line and stay in line so that you can cast your vote, because that's the first line of defense against voter suppression. Because at least if we have the data, at least if we can show that you showed up, at least if we can say, I know I didn't vote this way, you didn't vote that way, this person didn't vote that way, this person didn't vote that way, then if there's 100,000 people who can show up and say, wait a minute, it doesn't sound right, prove it to me, show me where my vote was counted, then that's something. But if you don't show up at all, then, Second thing is to educate yourself on what will be on your ballot before you get to the polls. Yes. Now, when I say educate yourself, I also say that as somebody who's been saying among people who work in politics that we need to do a better job of getting that information to people more aggressively, more
Sample ballots.
comprehensively. At sample ballots. There should probably be more websites
It
and
should.
more social media accounts and more time and energy on those platforms
Right.
spent and dedicated to making sure people know what will be on their ballot, making sure people know what they need to know, and even maybe a process where we check in with people and say, "Hey, have you double checked your sample ballot? Do you have
Right.
any more questions before you go down
Right.
there?" Because sometimes that's what makes the line long too. Is people get into the booth
And they
and they
don't
don't
know
realize
who or what they're voting
exactly.
for.
Yeah, you get to a question and look, I'm not gonna say I've never had to get in there and Google anything
Right.
at my big age, right? Even working in the process. So there's a lot of information to keep up with, of course, but that's something that I take some responsibility for, and I want some people who do the same kind of work to take some responsibility for it and think smarter about how we get that information to people.
Right. And I think for me, one of the things that I've noticed, I don't know if you know, but I worked at the election polls for a couple of years, and I
Mm-hmm.
was the youngest person there. Everybody who works at the polls before used to be old.
Yeah.
They were older people. They didn't really know how to use the equipment. Every time there was an update or a change, they could go to the training, but it still would be difficult for them to grasp it because the older people aren't as
Yeah.
technologically savvy as younger people. So even though they might have had the training one time, that's not enough for them. I can only speak for
You
the
know
county
what?
that I live in, and they only provide 1, maybe 2 days of training. And to me, that's not necessarily enough. I know some of the managers for the polls get more training, but the actual
Right.
workers for the polls do not get as much. And especially with this past election and the ones coming up with the new voter machines and things like that, people need to be able to have more training. But obviously, the bigger issue is the funding to be able to pay the people, because
Yeah.
whether people know it or not, you do get paid to work at the polls.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a whole bunch, but it's enough to entice you to come and work. So for the young people that are out there, I was very impressed when I went to early vote this time around, because there were a lot of young people there, and I looked at them, I was like, y'all some young folks. I said, now I used to be the youngest person at the polls, and I was in my
Right.
30s, and I was in my 30s. And I
You know
said,
who else
now,
said something about that? And y'all, for everybody, for anybody watching, we might be throwing out some names because we've known each other forever. So we might be throwing out names. Y'all gonna be like, "Who they talking about?"
who
But
they
you know
talking
who
about?
said something about that? Elizabeth said something about that. I
Oh,
had not
wow.
thought about it. Elizabeth
Yep.
said the other day, she was like, "Maybe it's time for us to start working these polls." We
It
had seen
is.
each other because we had the same polling location, and we had seen each other on election day. And she was like, yeah, part of the problem and part of the suppression is there are people who bank on the fact that, right, probably somebody banks on the fact that, hey, if we just switch the process up and switch the technology up, that'll hold up the line over here on
That
this side.
automatically.
Yeah,
Automatically. I was so glad to see the young people at my location because they did have the newer equipment. You know, they were very quick about it. But my older people who were towards, what they did was they put the young people on the equipment. And the older
yeah.
people at my location, the older people were kind of helping you at your station, giving you your sticker,
As it
helping
should
you
be,
put it
yeah.
into the machine to scan, but they didn't have to work the actual other equipment, which made my polling place a little bit better. But everybody
Mm.
isn't getting that um, same type of treatment. So,
No, I went to College Park. I went and tried to early vote the last Friday of early voting. And I went to College Park Library and the wait was 5 hours. So then I went to my polling location at 6:15 in the morning because I said I got too much to do on election day, so I got to get it out the way. But I went up there at 6:15 in the morning, and this sweet, beautiful woman who helped me out. I was the second person in line. She turned that iPad to me and she said, "Now what do I do next?"
I don't
I
know,
said,
ma'am.
Auntie, I said, we gonna figure it out together. I said,
Right now, if
please.
you want me
I
to
was,
tell you, and Howard,
yeah,
as beautiful and as sweet as she was, you
yeah.
know that doesn't help at the election polls when the
Mm-mm.
person who is supposed to be, running the polling place doesn't know how to use the
Right,
equipment.
right,
Grandmama, we love you, but it's time for you
right,
to move on
right.
to do something else. And they don't train people up to. Now I'm gonna tell you this, and then we're gonna move on to something else.
Mm-hmm.
And this live will be saved. Somebody can come back and watch. You can say what you want. I don't know if I'm supposed to talk about it or not, but guess what? I'm about to tell it. Okay,
What's going on?
so I used to work at a polling place. I won't name
Uh-huh.
the place. You can look it up because my name is probably associated with the polling place. Y'all can Google it and Google me. That's fine. So I used to work at a polling place. My
Uh-huh.
manager at the polling place was a black male. He was an older black male.
Mm-hmm.
The other people that worked at the polling place were older. When I say older, I'm talking about over 60. They were over 60. Two Caucasian females, one black female, and two Caucasian males. We
Mm-hmm.
had an incident at our polling place where a person came in, they voted. After they voted, they came to our station and said, "Oh, my ticket said Republican. I was supposed to vote Democrat." We like, well, that's your problem. You told to check everything before you go over there, whatever.
Right.
Um, well, my vote's not going to be counted, this, that, and the other. And we like, look, there's no changing over. If you have a problem, here's the phone number.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the contact number for the voter polling place. I mean, the voter office, and you can call them if you have an issue or concern. But here, we cannot do anything. You have already cast the ballot. There's
Right.
no going back. There's
You
nothing that
can't
we
get a
can do.
second one. Right.
Yeah, you're not going to get a second ballot. She goes over to one of the Caucasian males who tells her, "Oh yeah, we can let you vote again. We can let you vote again. Go on over here. There's Mr. So and so. He'll help you. Go on over here with him." So she goes over him, and he's like, "No, I can't let you vote again." And so she got upset, and she called the people
Right.
who come and monitor our monitors.
Mm.
Reported our polling place, everything. So because of this situation, the black manager and the Caucasian male got into a disagreement. They were quite loud. I had to go over there and say, "Hey, you guys, we have people in here who are voting. Whatever. I need you guys to keep your voices
Right.
down. We don't want to disturb the people who are voting." And they ended up kind of going back and forth. And these are older men, like I said, over 60. One black, one white. So you already know the kind of conversation they're having. And they were loud. Only word that did not get used was the N word. Okay. So
Got
um, afterwards, there was an investigation. An attorney, an investigator called me, asked me my opinion on the story and what happened and everything like this. I want you to know the black man who was the manager no longer working, no longer working there. And so,
right.
and
The one who gave the woman the correct information.
the one who gave her the correct information. On top of that,
Mm-hmm.
they called me and asked me to come back. I said, "Well, is Mr. So and so coming back?" They said, "No." I said, "Well, I'm not coming back either. You don't. I'm not.
Right.
I'm not working because he's not working. Because what you have done for this particular situation is unfair." I bring this up because not only is there voter suppression, but there are also people who are working in the polling place
Mm-hmm. Oh.
that are not doing what's right as
Oh
well.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and that is
And
just
that's
as
another method of it.
that's another method of
Yeah.
voter suppression when you
Yeah.
have people who have known or have placed, because it's not a known, people who have placed black people in a certain box within their life.
Mm-hmm.
And now those people are responsible for helping them do something that they feel they don't deserve to do anyway.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, you hate to be a community xenophobe, right? But sometimes you sitting there just like, how you wind up at this polling location? I mean, we had 2 different years. We had incidents where I went up to Morehouse. One year, one of my classmates called me, Micah Maryland called me. He was up there voting, and he was telling me that some things were going wrong, and we went up there. 2016, went back up there. Shout out to my homegirl Priya, who works election protection every year, and we always ride around like the jump out boys at the polling locations. But me and Priya went back up there. I think it was 2016. It was 2016 or 2017. We had to go back up there for some other stuff, and one of the problems was that they had one or two um, workers who should not. It was, if I'm not mistaken, it was the Abrams Kemp contest.
Okay.
And part of the problem that day was that there were people there who should not have been working there. Because the way they were dealing with the voters there was causing part of the problem.
Yeah.
And we were like, how y'all wind up over here anyway?
Right.
So
You in the wrong place.
Yeah, right. In the wrong
Yeah.
place. You knew you were in the wrong place. But that is why it's important for us, now to say, okay, you know what, it's really our turn to start going.
It's our turn. And on top of that, you have so many people who, I'm gonna say ignorantly choose to not vote, because they feel like their vote doesn't matter. They feel like their vote isn't counted anyway, that people are going to choose who they want to choose. And that's not true. Anybody who's watching who's just said, oh, I'm just not going to vote. And that's probably not the case, because people who know me and people who know you, probably the people voting. But either way, if you're making a decision not to vote based on recent things that's happening, that's not the right route. DM me, DM Howard, and we can help you get a clearer understanding of the importance that you have to play.
Well, you know what? I'm going to say this. Oh, go ahead.
No, I'm done. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to say this. I did make a conscious decision to stop talking bad about people who don't vote.
Okay.
Because I feel like part of my responsibility is to help them kind of unravel all their reasons for not voting, right? I mean, it's just like when the coronavirus came.
Right.
And people were like, I don't know if it's a real virus. I'm not wearing no mask. I don't know if this, I don't know if that. I can't blame it. Let's jump on into it, right? Because me and you, we ain't scared to say black when it's about black folk. Let's jump on into it. I'm never gonna blame black folk for not having full trust in their government when it comes to public health. That's just a matter of our history.
And it's part of the history.
Yeah, and so I'm not mad at people who keep electing people, or in Atlanta, keep electing black folk
without knowing whether or not they're good for them or not.
And don't see their situations change, right? I think a lot of people fall out of love with voting because they keep doing it and it doesn't work for them. And then they start saying it's a waste of their time. Because when somebody, and this isn't everybody's situation, but when you do have somebody who has other stress factors that weigh on their ability to vote in the first place, then it's hard to sell them on taking that time and putting it into something that they've done, that they might have done. Some people who say they're not voting have been voting.
Yeah, they have.
Yeah, and decided enough is enough, right?
Yeah.
And so what is it that you really say to people that gives them real reasons to believe in it again? Which is why I always go back to, look, at least give me the data. Like, at least spend that hour so I can have the data, so we can count it, so we can go and make a case for it at the very least. So those of us who feel like taking on that fight can take on that fight.
Right.
That also means that if we're going to ask people to do that, and people have felt betrayed by the process for a long time, then sometimes we need to step up. And sometimes we can't be too high cotton and classy to do whatever it takes to give people a good time in line. Because in 2012, on the Obama campaign, we had music and chicken at the polls, at the precincts where people needed to, and that was in Georgia, Florida, and North Carolina. We had music and chicken. So
music and chicken,
and it just is what DJs set up.
I clearly didn't live in the right county, because I didn't get that.
Yeah, you weren't in the right county. you weren't in. Well, first of all, you were in Georgia, and we weren't spending a whole lot of money in Georgia.
I know, because they already knew. But,
But
how we don't have a lot of time, so I want to move on to something else, because we don't have a lot of time. Right now, we have a black female mayor, in the
Mhm.
city of Atlanta, Keisha Lance Bottoms. And for the
Our Douglas
most,
High School sister.
yes, yes. Well, I wasn't gonna mention all that, but since you said it, yes. Um, I do not live in the city of Atlanta. I live in what's considered South Atlanta. But I do know of the work that she has done. I do know of the statements she has made about what she plans to do.
Mhm.
But right now we're in a season where the black man is not valued. And with the recent events of um, our world, people are doing what we call coming for her neck. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, how do you feel since you are an
A
Atlanta
couple of
resident?
ways. A couple of ways. I can go on and get started.
Look, he like, let me go.
So, a couple of ways, right? Like you said, we don't have much time, so uh, let's just jump into this part. First thing I want to say is, so first, thank you, right? You my girl, Ebony, you my sister. I love you. I love you for putting on this show. I love you for bringing me on. You know, calling me a king and things. I am. I got my cougar over there somewhere. And as you are, queen, right? But and I understand because the world looks at black men a certain way, right? But I have been trying to retrain myself to when I talk about police brutality to say black men and women because that is very important, right?
Yes,
Because
yes,
we still don't have Breonna Taylor's killers. We
yes,
still
yes.
we still don't feel right about a Tatiana Jefferson. We still don't feel right. One of the first
Come on,
videos
Power.
that we saw
You're not wrong in
in
nothing you're
in
saying.
yeah, in a school system, we had a school resource officer snatching when a school resource officer was on camera snatching a student out of a desk and slamming it on the ground. That was a black girl. When that video went viral of the kids being at their pool party and somebody got slammed on the ground in swimwear, couldn't have possibly had a weapon or anything. That was a black girl. Sandra Bland still died under
Black woman.
mysterious circumstances. The only reason, you know, Angela Davis and Asada Shakur got away is because they outsmarted the system. So, if it might, because things get reported funny, might happen to black men more, but also if one is too many, what does it matter, right?
Right.
So, um, so I appreciate you for lifting us up that way because we still need it, but that's really important to me. It's like it's black men and women, um, and that's because I hear a lot of even black women say, I have sons. It's like your daughter ain't safe either.
Right.
The minute she does like black women do and stand up and speak and march and grab that like in them legendary photos and grab that gun and grab that cop's face and all that,
Mm-hmm.
she's in as much danger. So that's important to me. Now I say all that to say I have, because there's so much to unpack there, right? Even in how we talk about that issue, I recognize that sometimes we're weird. Uh, we live in a world that's weird about black people, especially when they're in positions of authority, and weird about women, especially when they're in positions of authority at the
Yes.
same damn time,
Right.
right?
Right.
So, um, a lot of the feedback that I see about Mayor Bottom's performance um, comes from a lot of people who it seems like just need a way to be, who finally need a way to be mad at her. I think that when the pandemic started, I think she was one of the best mayors in handling the pandemic
I agree.
across the nation.
I agree.
What we've done, the plan that we have, the measures that we put in place, the way that they've been implemented, I think that's been some of the best across the nation. As it relates to as it relates to some of the issues that we've been having in Atlanta with protests around murders of unarmed black people by police, because again, yeah, George Floyd, and we lift up his name and we lift up uh, it'd be so many of them.
Yes.
I've the last one's name is actually, but you know, Wendy's.
Oh
Uh,
yes,
you
It's
know, we lift up his name and we still have Breonna Taylor. But I will say that if I had her ear at the time, I would have advised, and I said I'm good Douglas High School sister because it was funny to me at that conference. Everybody at the conference was a Doug alumni. Her, Bernice King, Killer, Mike
right,
Antioch.
right.
So only in Atlanta. But I would have said that people probably needed something else to hear in that moment other
Right.
than
Instead of feeling
uh,
like they were being reprimanded.
yeah, other than hearing it's time for you to go home, it's time for you to go home. Because again, we're talking about, just as we just said, we're talking about the same people who feel like nothing else has worked for them. So what do I care?
Right.
While we talking about black women, you know, it was Fannie Lou Hamer who said, the young black folk are saying, I want to be, I'm a young, as she said it, to quote, you know, back then she probably would have said men and women, but she said, you know, we want to be seen as young black men, respected as a man, and if
Mm-hmm.
I can't have it, I'm gonna tear it up because you can't have it either.
Right.
You know, so are we gonna say that what Fannie Lou Hamer was saying didn't make any sense? Like it just is what it is. And I think the wisdom that informs the most skillful leadership says that that's something to consider, right? That people
Right.
who are operating in that way, and of course, MLK said, you know, riot is the language of the oppressed, and so um, I think there was something else to be said in that moment,
Mm-hmm.
right? That being said, she's done under the powers of her office. I feel like she's done everything that she can to make the officer involved incidences right. Right? She's not the DA. she's not a judge anymore. Because she's firing officers. You know, she's firing officers. She's accepting the chief's resignation. Um, And I think a lot of people's frustration toward her as all these events unfold might be misplaced. Um,
I agree with that statement.
there are a lot of people who are dissatisfied with the city's budget as it relates to the amount of money that we're going to be spending on police in fiscal year 2021. Because it's somewhere approaching $300 million, and you can look at what we're spending on everything else compared to that. A lot of people are frustrated about that. She is not a city council member anymore. Uh, Judge anymore, city council member anymore, right? Shout out to the first Atlanta mayor to serve in all three branches of Atlanta's government, by the way. So, you know, I'm not mad at her.
Right.
Is she perfect? Far from it. And I think that there are moments here during this time where every black person who has any kind of responsibility or takes any kind of responsibility for anything is stressed out.
Yeah.
Uh, I think she's made a couple of mistakes, but none so rough that I'm standing outside of her house telling her to come out and telling her to come out, open them blinds.
Right.
Stop closing them blinds.
It's been rough for her. I'm sure. I
Yeah.
heard about how they surrounded her at the courthouse and things like that.
Yeah,
You know, like I said, I don't live in the city of Atlanta, so I'm not always
right.
exposed to absolutely everything that happens or occurs. But I've been, you know, reading the Facebook post and seeing the tweets, and I think that for some people, once they get set in their anger, they just begin to spew it kind of all over the place,
Yeah.
without really paying attention to the details. And I think
Well,
that they, you know, just make a broad, take a broad approach to some things that really require you to get into the details of a thing.
yeah.
So,
Well, other thing is, this goes back to me saying those of us who work in or with or around politics or alongside politics probably have some work to do around making sure people are better informed. Now that everybody's interested in politics and that everybody's following everything that happens, I think we now have an opportunity and a responsibility to give people kind of crash, refresher, or even intro courses on how some things work, right?
mm-hmm.
There were for example, City Council had their first meeting since it really got lit in Atlanta the other day, and of course
Oh
it was
yeah.
an
Oh,
online
that was
meeting.
good.
Oh, they had 400 public comments. You know, there were people in disputes all in the meeting, all that stuff.
Oh, it was
But
good.
well, it was a good one. But what was interesting to me was the number of people in the comments who were saying, "This is my first city council meeting. This is this is great." And I'm like, "Great, come to all of them.
Come to
Come to
all of
them
them.
when you got to come in person.
Don't be
Come
one
to
and
them when you
done.
got to, yeah, send a friend and figure out what's going on." But also recognize that there may be some things happening that you may not understand yet because it's your first time really taking an interest in the process. For example, they went into executive session and people were, oh, they gonna talk without us. We paying their salaries and they not. And we're like, this is a very normal part of the meeting. Like this is how you discuss personnel matters
Robert's
in
rules
a
of
meeting.
orders.
Like,
They don't have no idea.
yeah, no idea. There was one woman who said, I'm here to talk about sweeping curriculum change in APS schools. And I said, APS is not governed at all by the city of Atlanta's government. Like, it literally exists
You in
as
the
a
wrong place.
completely separate entity. They have their own charter. They're down near a municipality of their own, right? Like,
Right.
you need to be at the APS meeting. There's nothing anybody sitting on this dais or, on this virtual dais can do about anything over at APS. And then when you make it into there, you're going to find out that some curriculum decisions have to be made at the state level.
Right.
And she replied, talking about, thank you, will you help me? Sure.
Well, at least she said, "Will you help me?" instead of trying to prove she was right. Because so many people don't want to say that. So many people don't want to believe that they're wrong. I think that has a lot to do with where we are right now, especially with the heightened sense around racism and stuff right now. People don't want to accept that they're wrong. People don't want to accept that the past was wrong. Speaking of slavery, there was a man. His name was Louis Giglow, and he made this comment. You knew I was gonna get into it. I don't even know why you thought we was gonna skip over this. We only got a few minutes left, and I was gonna make this thing fit in.
Come on with it.
You figure deal me? Okay. So, Louis
God.
Giglow, he had a conversation, and to be honest, I think he was genuine in what he was trying to say, and I think.
Oh, I'm with you. Come on, wait. Tell the people what happened.
Yeah. So I think that Louis Giglow had this conversation when he was trying to be sensitive to the Black community and express. I'm gonna talk about what he was trying to say, not what he said first. First, I'm gonna talk about what he was trying to say. What he was trying to express was his sensitivity and his willingness to want to understand slavery and how he understood that it was wrong and that white people should take from it to create something better. I'm trying to clean it up as best I can. But
let me run with it because
go.
So he said.
I was getting ready to say what he said.
Y'all go ahead.
Okay. So what he said was that slavery was a blessing, and he was trying to make it seem. He was trying to make white people understand that they should take what happened in slavery and understand that they have had this privilege and try to turn it into a blessing. But he destroyed it though. He didn't explain himself properly.
Well, let me bring you back to, because I want to hit some details on what exactly he said.
Yes.
One or two details on what exactly he said. So this was a pastor. He was talking up to and Paul Lecrae, because y'all have tried to. I don't know if Lecrae is counseled or not. I don't. I like my rap a little trappier, so I don't know what's going on in the gospel rap world. But
I like Lecrae, bless his heart.
He was sitting up talking to this pastor, this white pastor, and Ebony, you and I grew up real Southern with praying grandmama, so we speak churchy, right?
Churchy.
That we understand that language. And white church is a little different than black churchy, right?
It's a lot different.
Yeah, a lot different. Okay. And so he sat up, he was talking to Lecrae, and he said, he drew an analogy, and I did understand where he was coming with.
Bless his heart with this analogy, but the analogy is what destroyed him.
The analogy is what destroyed him. So he said, And all the Craig could do was sit there and say, because he understood where he was trying to come from. And he was like, listen, you
But
probably should have enough sense
he
not to
knew he
say
was
that.
getting ready to get ate up though. Go ahead.
Yeah. So what he said was, a lot of Christians like to sit in the blessing of the cross, but don't necessarily always acknowledge. And I'm gonna use the word that pops up in my head because this ain't what he said. The origin of the blessing, right? So the persecution and the crucifixion and all that itself. A lot of Christians don't really like to, they like the blessing of the cross, but not necessarily being Christians, doing the work, being selfless, being humble, all that, being loving to all people, all people. All of that, right? Really don't like the origin of it. And basically he was saying, well, the origin meaning you have to live exactly like Jesus in order to fully appreciate and fully walk in the blessing of the cross. Then he said, I want to flip it. He said, so I think it'll help me get some more white folk to understand it if I say, well, we like to sit in the turmoil or the origin of slavery. And he was saying that this is how he would like to explain white privilege to white people who balk at the term white privilege. And he said a lot of us have long since acknowledged the even the racists, right? It was like, oh, that was terrible. It was so long ago, you need to get over it. But it was terrible, and we do understand it. And then he said, but we acknowledge the origin, but won't acknowledge the blessing. And so when he was saying the blessing, he was talking about white privilege, white supremacy. Then he said, so instead of white privilege,
would call it the white.
Say, I want to call it white blessing. I say, now listen. And I'm sitting watching that thing. You know how that meme said, oh no, baby, what is you doing?
I didn't mean to laugh like that. I did not mean to laugh like that. I'm sorry. Go ahead,
it tore me up. I hollered. Well, you're my close friend, so I hollered. but I'm gonna say like this, and black women be knowing, right? I couldn't figure out how I wanted to say it, but there was this one woman on Twitter. I retweeted her, and she said, the issue is not necessarily what he said or even how he said it. Like, okay, because I tweeted, I was like, yeah, I get what he was saying, but he should have had enough sense not to say that, right?
Yeah, or not to say it that way.
Not to say it, but she said the issue, that's what she said, but the issue was that in a conversation about everything that black folk have been through and everything the white folk have gotten out of it, he is still trying to center his comfort and his convenience in having the damn conversation. Like all he's being charged with is having a hard conversation with people. Nothing any harder than that. And he's still centering his comfort in that. And she was like, that's the white privilege.
Yeah, that's it right there.
That's it right there.
That not wanting to have the uncomfortable conversation and just choosing to neglect the uncomfortable conversation. That's the privilege. There's privilege in that. And I don't think, I'm literally, you know how people say, I'm so tired of trying to explain? Mm-hmm. I'm not tired of trying to explain. I'm tired of talking to brick walls.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've had, I've had interesting encounters with white folk, and more white folk than usual. Just as all this has been going on. And there's sometimes even been this weird, awkward kind of interaction, right? Where it's like, I should say something because I feel guilty, but I don't want to feel inconvenienced. So let me just say this little thing that doesn't really help that much and move on and let you know I'm thinking about you.
Right. And for me in this season, the church I attend is very multicultural. And my pastor is Caucasian, my pastor is white,
Yeah.
and everybody, I had a few people ask me, "You still gonna go to that church
Yeah.
underneath that white pastor?" And I'm like, first of all white people are not bad.
Oh yeah.
Let's not place them out into a category. And I'm grateful for my pastor. He has spoken up. He has, reached out to my family. He
Yeah.
has checked on us. He has done and is doing, because I think the problem is, for most people, we can say they've done their part and they're finished,
Mm-hmm.
but he's done and is doing, his part to contribute to the Black community in the way that he knows how, and he's listening. I think it's most important for people outside of the Black race, whites people,
Yeah.
and any other
Yeah.
people who are confused about this time, to listen. Active listening is a skill.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
you can't just hear people, you have to listen to them. That means while you're talking, I'm listening and not already thinking about what I want to say. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
taking the time to respond to you by saying, what I heard you say was, what I understand you saying is,
Yeah.
what I got from what you said was, I taught English, so maybe that has something to do with
Mm-hmm.
it. But to me, it makes more sense to be a listener. If you don't know how to say or what to say, just listen.
Right. Right.
Listen and soak up the knowledge. And there's so many people who don't want to
And like you
learn.
said, it depends on the church. I have a friend, a really good friend, Josh Noblett. He's the social justice minister over at St. Mark United Methodist. They are a big, predominantly white, very gay church in Midtown. The first time I went to one of their pride parades, one of their members had on a Black Lives Matter shirt at the pride parade. And this was while nothing crazy was happening, right? But because there's always something crazy happening, she had it on. I was like, "You got your Black Lives Matter shirt on?" And she was like, "Oppression is oppression, ain't it?" I said, "Girl, this is my third church home." I said, "But," I said,
I'll be back.
"Yeah," I said, "Now I got to see what the potato salad is hitting on when we get back from this march."
Listen.
But it was good because they suck. So it depends. It depends on if we're gonna be pressuring people and holding people accountable for doing the work it takes to be a true ally and posting lists of ways that you can check the boxes and make sure you are being an actual ally.
Right.
Then we also have to take a step back and say, okay, are you a real one? Are you a real one? Are you a real one? Because what do we want the allies for? What are we trying to get people to do it for?
Right.
Now, again, it's not a buddy cop movie, right? Once you're identified as a great ally, great, go forth and talk to the white people.
Right.
But if that's your pastor, that's your pastor. If your pastor is a good ally, if your church is doing good work, your church is doing good work, and it doesn't matter.
And we only have 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
And
okay.
Instagram is going to start doing a countdown at 2 minutes.
You've done this before.
We got 2 minutes. I thought we had 3 minutes. It just gave me a countdown of 154 and counting down 153, 152. Okay, so listen.
Okay.
I am super, super grateful that you took some time to share with me. I mean, I know we had so much that we wanted to talk about. It's kind of hard to get to everything in 1 hour, but I'm so grateful for you. I'm so grateful for the things that you're doing in the community. If you are looking for someone to assist you with getting your business off the ground or helping you figure out where to go in your business, he has one of the most amazing, I'm going to call it a communications platform, Red Clay Hill, where he provides every service under the sun that you need to get your business to where it desires to be. He's knowledgeable, he's credible, and he's a person who will fight your fight for you I'm not going to even say as long as it's worth fighting. He'll help you do what you need to do, even if it may not be something that he wants done. So, I'm grateful for you. Howard, is there anything we forgot? Okay, you have 51 seconds to tell me about a female who had a significant impact on your life, and go.
You know who that is. That's Georgia Robinson. I gotta shout out, right?
Cooling water.
Cooling water. That's my mama. My mama got me into politics, got me into community activism. and all that, right? A lot of people know her as a nice lady. Look, now I'm talking like the clock is winding down because I try to catch it in like commercial voice. But she got me into activism, started a nonprofit, brought a lawsuit against our school system when we were younger, won the lawsuit. They represented themselves, ran for Fulton County Commissioner when we were little. Like, she got me into all of this.
Well,
attend the virtual Transform
10
Westside
seconds.
Summit by Transform by Westside Future Fund tomorrow, and watch us Brunch with Kings gonna be at Iwi Fresh tomorrow. Like,
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.